Today, we're going to be taking a look at the top 35 most expensive George Washington cards. These cards date from all the way from the 1860s through the 1940s. You're going to see cards from multiple countries and super scarce issues, where sometimes the card is going to be the only one on the pop report. With that out of the way, let's take a look at these cards. All right, let's jump into the top 35 George Washington cards. A few criteria for this video. I tried to limit cards to one per set. You'll see in some of the slides that there's going to be multiple cards, and that's the reason why. I'm probably missing cards. Listen, non-sports is all across the world. It's from the 1860s through today. It is tough, right? Baseball cards are cake compared to vintage non-sports cards, especially when it comes down to foreign issues, things that aren't documented that well. I tried my best on this video. I put a lot of time towards it. So just giving you that caveat. And also, because of how difficult non-sports is, I'm putting the cards in order by year, not by value. We'll start in the 1860s. We'll go all the way through the 1940s. It would be impossible to rank these by value. Some cards have not sold publicly. Some cards sell every 20 years. And I'm not going to be the one that judges based around that. I would have ideas, but it's pretty subjective. So we're going to just go year by year and even by the years. Grading companies disagree with the years. Collectors disagree with the years. That's the beauty of non-sports. But I tried my best. So let's jump into the list. Also, by the way, join my Vintage Non-Sports Facebook group if you enjoy non-sports cards. So we're the largest vintage non-sports group out there on Facebook. And a lot of members also contributed some of their card images for this video. Okay, that out of the way. Let's start off with Praying. Now, Praying's interesting because there's an argument that this was incorrectly documented back in the day by Jefferson Burdick. So he essentially had a subset of the Praying & Co. presidents and wives. But if I remember correctly, there was only like 5 or 6 presidents that were featured in that subset. Ideally, it really should just be one Praying set. And you could technically order these for 10 cents each. But what's also interesting about this is these are classified as CDVs, yet grading companies reject almost all CDVs that get sent to them. Make an exception for Prayings. So I find it interesting that they'll grade these in comparison to other CDVs, but yeah, I think we're going to start off the list on that. Value-wise on this George Washington, I did not find any public sales. Lincolns right now, they're all over the place. You know, some sell for 500, some sell for 1,000. They used to be a lot cheaper. Ideally, I think this George Washington is probably about a $250 card. Could be more, could be less, but I think that's where the fair market value is as of today. We're going to jump into the Between the Axe and Bravo. And a lot of these next cards, which you'll see, they're anywhere from like 1885 through 1890. They're all bunched together. I don't know the specific order that these were issued. No, I wouldn't say no one, but even the grading companies, they just have a broad range of years. Sometimes grading companies will have presidential sets that are incorrectly dated based off the presidents that are in there. So 1800s is tough to know the order. There's no official years with some of the stuff. But anyways, Between the Axe and Bravo, you may know of their larger set with mainly actors in there, and also a few other athletes that are in that set too. This George Washington is a Pop 16 at PSA. I was actually having trouble looking up the SGC Pop for some reason. It wasn't showing up. And the last two sold for about $331. I have it too in my own personal collection. I have to say, these are fantastic cards. And I didn't put it back on here. I tried to put back some of the stuff I forgot on the side, but they look really awesome. Next is a HD2A. There is a ton of different variants on this card. This is considered a trade card. And kind of like some of the baseball sets that you'll see like M101, where sometimes you'll have like 10, 15 different backs. So same thing happened with a lot of the president sets in the 1800s. And you can see here's a sample of these. I grabbed all these off the pop reports. So You can see like Blinkbacks, Boston Cambridge Clothing, Boston Brand Shoe Store, etc. I'm not going to read them all off over here. The Blinkback, I believe, is the most common version. A PSA 3 sold for 150 bucks in 2023. There's 25 different graded between the backs at PSA. SGC broke their pop report by each of the different advertisements. I'm not going to open up, 10 or 15 different tabs and add them all up. It's kind of a pain going through the pop report also because you have to click on one, then go back. So hope you guys understand. All right, so now we're jumping to H602, another trade card. Quite a few different ads that are there. You'll notice that this list is smaller than the HD2A. The problem with it, though, is not all of them are labeled. So what I was finding on research is PSA just blankly labels these as H602s, and a lot of time they won't mention the specific ad on there, which kind of sucks for the pop report side of things and also pricing. Regardless, Glenny Co. did $215 in 2024, and there's 24 different graded copies at PSA. Again, SGC broke up the pop, so I'm not going to jump into all of those. There's a lot more other ads too that I did not list over here. It's just unfortunately not a lot of documentation. Another set which has quite a few different ads on here is the 1885 J.D. Larkin and Company Presidents, mentioned as H603. Larkin is going to be the most common one that you see. And also, I'm going to say, based off the last few, this is my favorite design out of the trade cards that have a lot of different advertisements. I think the other ones are kind of bland. These are kind of nice. But down below, I listed a few of the other different ads on here. An SGC5 in 2024 did about 275 bucks. Lower grade copies you can find about $100 or less. And unfortunately for both PSA and SGC, they break down the pop by the individual brands. There's too many to add them up right now. Okay, we're going to jump into tobacco cards now. And up first we have an 1880, and I didn't put the actual year, but N51 by Allen and Ginter. This is widely considered the first tobacco president set. And for this George Washington, there's only one graded between SGC and PSA, which is a PSA 4. And there is no public sales. This is a card that I want to add into my collection. I do have the Lincoln in this set, but unfortunately it is trimmed and also skinned on the back. All right, we are jumping into another Allen Ginter. This is the 1888 N15 Great Generals. Really amazing design on the set and the George Washington itself. I know I mentioned that there's no recent public sales. I do believe a few years ago, a copy sold for about $1,500 and a 4. I'm just using VCP for some of the sales data, and it just was not there. Regardless, the SGC and PSA pop of the George Washington was 13, and the highest graded out there is going to be a PSA 7. Again, a fantastic set for you to explore. If you're just seeing it for the first time, I highly recommend this as kind of like not a starter set, but something to look into because great names, great imagery, and also it's by Allen Ginter, which is really popular even to this day. All right, we're jumping into an 1888 Yum Yum Tobacco Presidents. This is a funny one because the grading companies have completely messed up the pop reports based off of Yum Yum. So what you'll see sometimes is these N472s will get labeled as N309s. Sometimes the N309s get labeled as N472s, just based off of it mentioning Yum Yum Tobacco and there being no non-sports experts at these grading companies. I wouldn't say no non-sports experts, but unfortunately there's no quality control based around this stuff. But it's frustrating, I'm going to say that. But this is a much tougher card to find than the N309. Another one that features the same design is the 1888 GB Miller Actresses and Celebrities N476. No comps on this George Washington. You'll see it uses the same image as the Yum Yum, but a few years ago, a Lincoln 3 did almost $5,300 at auction. A set that I really like, the N112s, the Great Americans. You have 3 founding fathers on here: Hamilton, Washington, and Hancock. Right now, about probably like a 1.5 to a 2, you're looking about $2,000 for this card. I believe there was one that had a corner ripped off, and it still sold for close to $1,000. And you'll see that this has one giant back together with all those triples. The next one we have over here is just the N76 by itself, and it's a single back. So on the side of things, 3s to 4s right now are selling anywhere from like $2 to $2,500. It's a Pop 27 at PSA, Pop 7 at SGC. I love the design on this card. It's one of my favorites in the Duke N76 set. We're jumping into N222 Kinney leaders. Again, these are all still pre-1890 on these cards. This you can find both in narrow and wide versions. This card has gone up a little bit over the last year. You can find a one about $200. Sometimes they'll go for like $150, sometimes $250. Depends on paper loss and eye appeal and things like that. I still regret passing up on a 7. I think it was 2023 or 2022. A 7 sold for like $350 or $450. Should have bought it. But regardless, they are out there, and I wouldn't say this is like entry level, but this is a pretty good way to get into an 1800s George Washington that has more eye appeal than some of the trade cards I showed you. Okay, 1890. I'm lumping these together. This is the H600s / the N309s. So you'll notice that these have the same exact design. Well, Burdick, essentially what he did is he put the tobaccos with the N309 category and the non-tobacco in H600. I don't know if that's the correct call or not, but that's just how it is right now. And also, if we remember the discussion on Yum Yums, this is N472 over here, which that's incorrect. This should be an N309. There's a lot of these that are like that, so be careful. It doesn't just impact SJC slabs, it also impacts PSA, but I just wanted to show you guys a clear as day example. You can see it says Yum Yum Tobacco at the bottom, but that is not technically a Yum Yum N472. All right, we're jumping close to 1900 now. We're 1897. American Tobacco, L. Miller and Sons Presents, T95. These are pretty tough to find. PSA 4 did $250 back in 2020. Last card in the set is William McKinley. And from research, you can find these both in wide and narrow borders. 1900s, our first foreign issue over here. This is about $75 to $100. These are also tiny in size. I believe that these are out of Spain. Correct me if I am wrong in the comment section down below. I do have one of these. I think it's in like a 1 or something like that. I paid about $100. All right. Hall of Fame for Great Americans. So I grabbed this from the Vintage Non-Sports auction, but they said created to celebrate a Hall of Fame for Great Americans, which still stands on the campus of New York University and was the first Hall of Fame in the United States. Might have actually been a different auction house, actually, if I remember correctly, that had that verbiage. But regardless, the comp I'm using was from Vintage Non-Sports auctions. SGC 1 sold for $343. You can see you can see Washington on the river to the left, and then the hall right over here. And it is a larger card and does go in a larger slab. All right, a set that I found out from the Facebook group, 1902 T64 Generals. Recently, there is some, I wouldn't call them commons in the set because they're big names, but lesser known names than George Washington recently sold at an auction for $300 to $500 a piece. I couldn't find any graded sales for any cards in the set. And in fact, only a total of 5 cards were graded from the set. And that's at PSA. I didn't look at SGC. Very, very tough to find. I mean, I would expect this Washington to be $1,000 plus if it went to auction today. 1902 Ogden Guinea Gold. This is a UK release. Also in the Series C, you'll find Ulysses Grant. What's interesting, and I haven't paid attention to comps recently, I believe the Grant's like a $200 to $300 card. The Washington, for some reason, is a little bit cheaper, which typically isn't the case. Maybe Washington's lagging a little bit. But with the Ogden Guinea Golds, there's well over 2,000 of them. And the last comps on these, like on the Washington, a PSA 2 is about $100. A PSA 6 is about $500. And that 6 sold, by the way, in 2021. All right, this design may look very familiar or almost identical to the Ogden Guinea Golds. But these are Kusa cigarettes. This is a brand that I actually enjoy collecting. They're out of Malta, which is an island country south of Italy. And just like the Ogdens, there's probably about 2,000 different one of these, like Kousis black borders. They're not well documented out there. I did talk to a collector from Malta when I went to Europe last year, and he's working on some sort of documentation. I don't know if he's gonna publish it or not. There could be more George Washingtons out there. These two have been confirmed. The one on the right is presidents, and the one left is generals. Sometimes there's gonna be more. Like Teddy Roosevelt, I think has like 3 or 4 in the set. So these are only two that I could find, but it would not surprise me. Regardless, I believe the one on the left, a 5, just sold for about $1,500. I apologize for not putting the comp on here, but lower grades I would expect probably about like anywhere from 100 to 200 bucks. All right, we're gonna talk about some German cards. Again, stuff that just doesn't really have a lot of comps. So I wanted to throw in some foreign issues into the video also, just to try to get people to explore. Right, watching this video most likely you're from America, but there's so many cards overseas that have really awesome designs and different things like that. They're not well documented, and the hobby needs help on that side of things. But this one is a mixture of George Washington and Lafayette, and the set featured other historical figure duos. Like there's, I believe, a Newton with Franklin, and I have a few others in the set too. I have a Charles Darwin, but I can't remember who the second person is with Darwin. But either way, this is a series 237. Next, we have a 1900s Pullman, another German issue. I actually picked up my copy of a Pullman from a German collector. It sent me over a care package last year, which I'm super grateful for. This one sells for about $200 in lower grade. And lastly, another one over here, such are rulers and their castles. You can see the White House over here, and then Washington to the left. Man, I love this design. Someone in the group just picked this up, and now I definitely want to grab one. But it has two iconic things, right? There's some people that just want to collect the White House. There's people that collect Washington. So you get a crossover, which tends to do pretty well in non-sports. Some crossovers like Washington, right? Military collectors want them. Grant is another classic example where you have military and also presidential. You'd also get Civil War collectors. But regardless, crossover cards tend to do pretty well, and this is a nice look in Washington. We're going to go back to Malta now. Columbus cigarettes. This card's about $100 to $200 in lower condition. That's what I've paid for my copies, I believe. And anyways, the set features other historical figures. Like you can find Da Vinci in there, as well as Queen Victoria. And it's a really awesome set. Okay, we're jumping into 1910 awards, Tip Top Bread Presidents. We're here, and pretty striking red background on these cards that kind of stand out in comparison to others out there. A 1.5 has sold for about $275. SGC4 sold for $700, and it's only up top 15 at PSC and SGC. T68, Heroes of History, Men of History. You can find these with quite a few different backs. And this copy over here, SGC 4.5, recently sold for almost $1,100. Rare backs do bring a bit of a premium. There's like a silver back, and then also like natural leaf, which tends to be pretty rare. Miner's back is tougher as well. Royal Bengals is going to be your easiest one to find. 1911 T70s. There's 4 different Washington cards in the T70s set. They're immensely popular. You can figure they're about $100 plus right now, just based off of recent comps. So you have Inauguration, you have Valley Forge, Bidding Farewell, and then Crossing the Delaware. Really cool cards to get if you ever have the opportunity to purchase one. We have a 1911 S76 Silk. There are some people that collect silks. I was debating whether to put a silk on here for a non-sports card list, but then I would be contradicting myself if I didn't, because I consider gum wrapper cards as cards. So the silk over here, there's a set of 5 that sold at vintage non-sports auctions for $1,600. They're 7x9, which are quite large and take up huge slabs. But regardless, Washington by himself is probably anywhere from like $300 to $500. Another one that kind of hesitant to call a card, but at L4 American Tobacco Company, Generals on Horse Leather. This is a premium from tobacco purchases through saving coupons. And 2022. This sold for $421 at the Vintage Non-Sports auctions. All right, we're jumping to Cuba now. 1915 Susini. This is still one of my favorite George Washington cards out there. I love the design on this. They go for anywhere about like $200 to $300 in low grade. I sold a duplicate a few years ago to a collector's dream on YouTube, and I haven't really seen many others that have populated since then. There's a small horde of Susinis that all hit the market, and then they all kind of dried up. It is a Pop 4 at SGC, and like I said, pretty awesome release. Also, you might be familiar with the Trispeaker Susini, so same exact company as well. The Speaker Susini is like a $500 to $1,000 card. 1925 D68 Weber Bros Presidents of the U.S. I couldn't find any Washington sales, but I did see a Lincoln PSA 5 did 1,500 back in 2023. A card that I wasn't familiar with, and unfortunately, this is after making the 1930s decade video, but the 1930 R116 Independent Candy Co. Presidents. The set stopped at Hoover. PSA labels this as a 1940s release. I believe SGC labels it as 1930s. Most non-sports collectors I've talked to said also 1930s. I couldn't find any Washingtons also graded at SGC, but again, a classic example of two different grading companies disagreeing on what specific year or even decade something was released in. 1930s R14 George Washington. All the cards in the set are either card number 1, 2, or 3, which is a bit confusing to say the least. And this in a SGC 4 recently did $825. 1930 through 39 R91. In my opinion, this is probably a 32, 33 release due to FER card saying New Deal president and the inclusion of Al Smith, who ran for the governor, and also the inclusion of Al Smith within the set. It's a 25 card set, and the total pop between PSA and SGC is 50. 1932 Caramel. You can find these in red, blue, and orange. The pop right now between SGC and PSA is about 100. Highest graded out there is going to be a 9. That sold for $12,000. But typically in lower grade, anywhere from like $200 to $400, depending on the background color and obviously condition. Last card on this list is 1940s R210 Trio Gum Presidents. I classify this as a 40s release due to Truman being in the set. These are extremely tough and quite pricey. So a few honorable mentions from sets not featured. So the 1892 Arbuckle, 1888 Y95 Scraps, 1910 Taddy Autographs, 1924 Ogden Leaders Men, same with Players, Carrera's Famous Men, Post Serial, these are hand-cut cards, Reamstas, Haas Bergerman, X-Teen Halpus, Donut Corp, Look and See, Tops Push and Pull, and then 1985 Garbage Bill. Thanks guys for checking out this video. I'm going to put my non-sports playlist on here now, so if you want to watch some other videos like this, check it out over there. And again, these videos take such a long time to research and build out, so I really appreciate you guys checking out. If you are new here, make sure to subscribe and maybe send the video to a friend that's trying to jump into non-sports. All right, see you guys.